Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 200th episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist and getting ready for a sell-on. Excuse me. So, what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to take some time on something that wasn't just about the salon, but I've talked a couple of times about how I'm going to implement this plan to accelerate our progress through the various incidents. Now, I don't have a great system for this, but I do have a bit of a memory. So the idea here is that when we encounter something like the affair of the Oriflamme heist, we will take a look at all of the characters who have Forge and Knock interests, invite them, see if they are interested in discussing the event. I believe it does go through every character with these interests, but I guess we'll find out if there isn't. And the only drawback here is that while I've taken a note of what people want in terms of food and drink, I've not paid attention to the aspects that they're interested in. So because I'll be getting these characters through the process of inviting them, I'm actually just going to take the time to write these notes down as just kind of out of just for simplicity for myself. Again, I have a reasonably good idea. So for instance, I mean, Fraser's already up, but I would have said scale, and I actually didn't know the other one. I would have made a guess in terms of a lantern, but the scale is just because of his food preference, which I'll also be writing down. So we'll get it wrong in a couple cases, I'm sure, but the idea here is just to try and minimize the number of seasons that are spent inviting new people to the list. Although it's also worth noting that we don't actually have the full complement of visitors yet, at least as far as I can tell. Also means that we'll have a little more diversity in terms of the guests as I do this. So Strathcoin, Lantern, Scale, and Scale. Now, I've already written down Olympie Bichet, and she has Forge, so that would be one that we would be interested on its own. Now, Douglas Moore isn't relevant to the Oriflamme heist, but we still want to write him down. So, Lantern, Heart. That's one of the few that I remember. Lantern. Of course, invite him a whole lot, too, so... Hokebald is one who's already satisfied through the... Actually, I already wrote him down anyway. So, but again, in this case here, we've got Forge preference in terms of food, and Forge and Grail for interests. And finally, Daymare, who I believe I also have written down here, Knock preference for food, and then Knock and Rose. So my suspicion here is we'll have... Now, the Salon's the Salon. The affair of the Oriflamme heist will be a different matter, but my guess here, I did make a quick note of this in terms of saying write some invitations, maybe not for this stream, but in terms of people who have the Knock or the Forge. So we've already got Olympie Bichet. Sorry, it was Olympie Bichet. Hokebald's already taken care of. Daymare is already on there, and I expect we would probably want at least Serena Blackwood. I don't think that's complete, but I also don't remember who I said before. So, but yeah, needless to say, we've got our work cut out for us when it comes to these. So. I think the idea was, I'm reading something somewhere. Yes. Right, I was also making the notes of the various Numa texts. Oh, also... I'm just taking a note here, so I don't think I made a note that Fraser's inspired. And then, I don't think D.I. Moore is, but Hokebald is. Okay, something for me to consider for the future. But yeah, I'll want to restore a few elements of the soul over the course of the day. But I think we are ready to move forward. Right, we were also improving the various skills. Now, again, we're going to treat the excuse me, we're going to treat the Salon much the way that we have before, which is we'll start with an expectation of 6 of every element of the soul, but as time goes by, I'll start repurposing the various elements of the soul for whatever tasks I think need doing. The sun's design, a scorched slab of black corundum, minutely scratched on every side with intricate ideoglyphs. In the city of Emesa, beneath the Church of the Holy Belt, in a sarcophagus of black corundum, Elagabalus lies, accursed of Janus, neither long nor mortal, neither man nor woman, neither a liar nor a speaker of truth, neither real nor imagined. On his light suffused skin is made manifest the sun and splendor's grand design. Elagabalus is the source of one half of this text. The source of the other half is obscure, but its power is evident. It is impossible to be certain if the sun really planned for us to enter eternity. It is impossible to be sure if the Grail, the Vagabond, and the Forge stole this birthright from us or saved us from it. But there is a great secret here. The paths of the sun. The sun has charted his paths beyond walls and woods and bounds. When the sun lights our way, when we are ready, all of us will enter eternity, at least in the right history. So again, the aim behind this was to get a better catalog of what my Newman texts are. And then that was Forge, Knock, and Lantern. Now, I'd love to read another one of these, but we're going to have to wait till the Salon's done. Well, I mean, I can just lose the, I could just lose the memory. That won't be that big of a deal, but I feel like we can do better. Also, I may actually have the full account here. So we've got the Sun Disfigured, we've got the Shreddick Book of Suns, Turquoise Hand, Towards a Fundamental Aesthetic, both editions, Serpent Root, and Sun's Design. So actually what we would be doing next is reading the text that we found in the vault here, or 2 texts we found in the vault rather. There's Sky and the Scar and the Coprolith Amphalos, although perhaps we'll do that after the Salon, seeing as we'll already be sort of weighed down with a bunch of lessons. So again, this is entirely about the Salon. We're not going to be worrying about the any of the extras that we can get from the affair of the Oriflamme heist yet. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. I actually went to a cafe that I normally go to, and I had an apple strudel today, so this rings particularly particularly true for me right now. All right. I believe this is the first Maricat that we've got. So the Incastum Terminale of the 5th History, the color of the principle that once occupied the place that heart does now. In the 5th History itself, the cult of Maricat was everywhere suppressed, but it's sometimes been venerated otherwise. I don't think it hurts for us to open more containers at this point, so take number 2, the Scaled Chest, a treasure left behind by an explorer on the eve of his final voyage. What midnight gift. We have to wait till the afternoon before we can start the Salon, but happy enough to get everybody in place. So actually a reasonable example of this. So Fraser Strathcoin. So pick an incident that will interest them. Now this we knew because he doesn't have the relevant. He doesn't have the relevant aspects. Whereas I believe if we do this with Daymare, we're gonna have a proper chat. But again, Daymare's here for lunch. Does feel a little foolish to just sort of be sitting here waiting like this, but I have lined everything up so that we'll focus on the salon, then building up those lessons, then moving forward. All right, midday. Before the Great Division, this was the 6th hour, when the priests led hymns to the sun and splendor. Now noon, as they say, is not as it was. Perhaps the new king will change that. We are having lunch in the Hall of Division. Ava de Wolf first furnished this as her Hall of Division, holding feasts where the guests were selected by unusual and exacting criteria. Later, Thirza Blake, 7th librarian, employed the speculist Pomander to add more mirrors. Lots more mirrors. Our guests are Mr. Fraser Strathcoin, philanthropist, collector, former librarian, a complicated man, but not a cruel one. Madame Limpy Bichet, essayist, illustrator, critic, editor of the Carisham Review. Detective Illuminate Douglas Moore, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. Also, oddly enough, one of the most social out of the characters. He's got both the connection with Coquille and Arthur. Magister Hokebald, metallurgist, gourmet, corrupted immortal, and supposedly a long-ago king's byblow. And Daymare, Grafin Frederica Dagmar Sophia Teresa Helena Begina von Nagelsberg, if you prefer. She doesn't. They will be enjoying mouli au jus. This has been called moth but delicious, but perhaps we will all be in the end. Game chips. Long before fish and chips, these went crunchily with game. Ideally, you'd want bread sauce and bread crumbs to complete the ensemble, but honestly, it's hard enough not to just stuff these directly into your mouth. Roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately, the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. Roast beef. Our fathers of old were robust, stout, and strong, and kept open house with good cheer all day long, which made their plump tenants rejoice in this song. Oh, the roast beef of Old England and Old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, the Grub Street Opera, an orange jumble. They should be the size of teacup rims and should curl their crisp edges, faintly pink as the underneath of a young mushroom. Lady Jekyll, kitchen essays. Finally, for drinks, they will be enjoying Roscragan whiskey, a favorite tipple of Sir David Green, 8th librarian of Hush House. I should double check that he's there, incidentally. Strathcoin whiskey, the collector has collected a distillery, it seems. Dandelion wine, homemade flower wine. Lethe, a dark and syrupy liquor favored in unnamed forest villages. And Cater and Hero Second Flush Assam, a half pot, tea from the land of the real unicorn, imported by Cater and Hero. And yes, David Green is in place. Right. Let's get to it then. Bring light back to the mirrors where once Lady Ava held court. My guests take their places for lunch. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing an extra interaction between your guests. Okay, black sapphire wash. That probably will go in one of the closets. It'd be nice if I had more things to do with my health. I do have the, like I could do some gardening and such, but I do sort of like the fact that I'm going to be able to make some progress on the different different containers. Cache. Unregarded rarities. The attaché case, a treasure stored by a diplomat folklorist. What overlooked delight. There's not much work can offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. On to the salon. Invite a challenge. Add a metal card. Hokebald and Dagmar discuss the work of Willem Harries, with particular reference to lintels and thresholds. Hokebald's habitual air of contempt thins. He listens with real interest to Dagmar's answers, but Dagmar retains a careful distance, and after he arranges her plate and teaspoon to illustrate her point, she eyes them sidelong and does not touch them again. Conversation ebbs and flows. Energetic exchanges. Spice up the conversation. Add an Arab card. And already I should actually be rearranging these. So we've got 2 that we've committed, so we need 4 of everything. Actually, what I should be doing here is moving the pluses. Right, so it looks a little weird, but sorry, I realize this is completely tedious to watch, but there must be order. And we do have door and wall. So one of the things that we can do to prepare here is, because we know that door and wall is going to be going up, it's forge and knock. So among the remaining... Actually, it looks like door and wall itself is going to be the one that we move up. So I'll generate whatever knock and forge I can with the elements of the soul that I have available, and maybe leave one of the shaft aside. So we can do that right now. And the great news here is that we're actually already on the way with Paths of the Sun. So I'll keep the Arab set aside here. Yeah, this will work. So that's 2 of the 5, I believe, that I need. Yeah. So knock and forge. Oh, hell, I don't even remember where we were on this. Let's do Book of Dissolution. So that's 3. 2 more. Trying to remember where we were on these. Or 1 more. Actually, regrets should do that for us. Alright, so we know we'll get at least one extra... We'll get at least one extra level with the door and wall. Hokebald has a proposal for a 9-arched wind door, which he hopes to construct on Dagmar's estate. Dagmar is clearly interested in the project, but firmly refuses to let Hokebald use her estate or even visit it. Hokebald grinds his teeth, but keeps his temper. So, another door and wall. I'm enjoying... There doesn't seem to be a marker for further interactions, but I am very much enjoying the Dagmar-Hokebald interactions in this point. Say something witty, add a Shapt card. Okay, and then we only need 3 of the remaining elements. This is why I split this up this way, because it... I guess in terms of the pluses, we don't have anything new that's going to come up, but we're definitely going to be... We'll be adding more than we take away for the next little bit. Don't know if I have a second one of these door and walls, though, just because of the fact that we have a lot of overlap. Alright, Horomachistry will heighten my aspirations. Ithistry will spark my inner radiance. Ithistry will ensure my whist endures. The wood is filled with shadows. Skolakosophy will dissolve the limitations of my shapt. And preservation, the heart still beats beneath the world's skin. So we have a little bit of rearranging to do here. Shapt is going to be the most... Oh no, we're good there. So I was going to say Shapt is going to be the most difficult just because of the plus, but we actually don't have a plus anymore, which is good. So yeah, that wasn't so painful. But as you can see here, like, so the ideal will be when we finish the salon, I'll be able to take stock and say, okay, do I feel comfortable enough taking some of these Arabs and turning them into, you know, plus Arabs? And then likewise, I'll have a similar conversation about... I mean, in practice, I can probably already get away with some extra Fet and Trist, but I find it a little bit easier to just keep track. I find it a little easier to keep track of everything when it's the start of the day and I don't have anything sort of committed to a, to a work slot. Okay. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So we're slowly running out of health to throw at the sweet bones, but that's kind of by design. And we have January Sanguinary, also called Sanguis Sultandis, or by the ignorantly superstitious, the True Blood of Saint Januarius, which we're actually running out of space for. I definitely saw it fit on one of those shelves before it went away. That is not precarious at all. Alright, carrying on, let's open up another container. So naturally the aim would be, okay, this guy in the scar, let's move on with that. I'm going to hold back. If anything, I want to try and deal with some of these lessons we'll be getting out of the salon first, but I can definitely open the Imperial Casket, a treasure stored by an exiled empress. Something exalted. What sovereign wonder? And then moving on, we have a bunch of door and wall. I don't think it's clear what our next item is going to be, though. Hokebald and Olympi share a series of peculiar meditations on chrysalids and crossroads. It will be... it will never be as it was, she says, several times, softly. And resurgences and emergences for our trouble there. So that may go straight back into itself. So I'm slightly less inclined to level up weaving and not working because I know we're going to be getting another one to put into weaving and not working. Raise a complex question. Add a whist card. I suppose the open question here is, given that there isn't so much overlap with resurgences and emergences, and our alternative right now is door and wall, do I want to try and make a go of resurgences and emergences? Let's do a quick tally. So 1, 2... Wait a minute. Yeah. Three, 4. I could do this. I can definitely do this. Okay. Oops. Okay, so we're at 2. Three. Four. Don't even remember which one we're on to. I guess I don't have the vac, so that should be number 5. And again, we have a little bit of freedom once the salon's done, but we'll see how it goes. Hokebald negotiates the purchase from Fraser of certain exotic alloys. He presses Fraser on the availability of Ys metal, but Fraser, glancing around nervously, insists that he can provide no such thing. Lesson bells and braziers. I mean, we don't have any... Oh yeah, no, Douglas is at the table, so never mind. Alright, on the matter and deeds of serpents. This was probably the prophecies of the Naga, rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of VAC texts. The serpent folk called the Great Hooded Princes came to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the mother of ants whose children they had been. The text describes how the Great Hooded Princes escaped, or will escape, from the Fifth History, where they had died, or were doomed to die. They engage in a secret conquest of the land of the Great River, called India in some histories, and have ensured that all other conquests of that land are false conquests. The Book of Dissolution. Alexander Propts recovered a copy of this work from a mountain temple in Persia. Other copies surface now and then, usually seared onto rock. The book consists mostly of prayers to the unburned god, the Forge of Days, which consumes and transforms. It suggests the Forge's power arises partly from its nature and partly from its tools. The book describes an earlier House of the Sun, whose doors and ways were different. It praises the Forge of Days for opening the ways into the house, and for transforming that which was to that which is, despite the screams of stone. The The Radical Measure, manifesto for experimental and dangerous-sounding invocatory poetry written sometime in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel, a notoriously inconsistent and incoherent text apparently produced in a tearing hurry. The hours have little time for poetry, Dr. Peel avers, but they have a tremendous amount of time for poets. As the rose opens, Dr. Peel explains, an enduring memory opens to the horizon. This is a way of saying something that cannot otherwise be said and is best only written with one's eyes firmly closed. And on the white, Solomon Husher writes, perhaps allegorically of winter and its long, slow, doomed romance with the sun. The epigraph is sunset at noon. On closer investigation, the work seems to be a theory of aesthetics, or perhaps a set of warnings about the dangers of painting. Husher writes distractedly about his suspicion of colors and his yearning for death. He hints at a great work he has envisaged, or began, where the palest of paintings will enthrall the world. He returns again and again to certain compelling phrases, which he claims are the secret words of winter. Alright, so that's going to be my door and wall sort of allotment. Mansus Tales. Ask about dreams. Add a FET card. Well, that's inconvenient. It's probably not really that necessary for me to divide these out this way anymore, but it's nice to... It's kind of nice to know the barriers that I have to kick against. And I know I'm a bit over time, but I really do want to finish the salon before we wrap up for today. Douglas and Hokebald struggle to find common ground until a chance remark brings up the Endeavour Club's enthusiasm for acts of pyromancy and occasionally outright arson. Both agree that the Endeavour Club is a gang of fire-starting snobs that wants locking up. Ask about dreams, add a FET card, and then that's it for our salon. Actually, at this point, we should just arrange them. A year tally, a chitty worth an additional year of life, scrupulously obtained through carefully balanced thaumaturgic attention to the cindered tally of the madrigad. Got any room for that up here? I'm guessing not. Better now. Actually, at this point, let's we'll start employing the with quite a bit of whist. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Now, what I didn't account for was the remaining container, but I think if I mess around with that too much, we lose the opportunity to level up the various items. Actually, really, this is the point where I should be deciding on any more reading. I think I'll settle for 2, which of course means I should be making the most of my remaining elements of the soul. So we'll go... Actually, I'll go crazy in the gardens this time around. I think we're doing okay for... I think we're doing okay for food. And I've settled on the... I've settled on what I'll be using, so I don't need to worry about... Sorry, I don't need to worry about the... using up a skill that I was going to level up. Oh, the earth is quiet, not barren, only sleeping. So, yes, I'm still fine to commit the rest of these. I just wanted to double check that I wasn't signing myself up for disappointment by committing the elements of the soul that I need to level up. Okay. Now, if I can maybe convert some of these into money, that will be a nice bonus. But it's not a primary concern right now. Fritter and Hokebald bicker about whether Hennevek, the language spirit sometimes called the eldest, belongs to the wood or to the mantis. And the Beekeeper's Ends, dialogues with bees and uses for honey as erratically recorded by Ricardo Milagro, gardener of Hush House in Musgrave's time. Milagro spends an entire chapter on his hatred of wasps, which he describes as the vile pretenders. Milagro claims that bees retain many traditions passed down from earlier and greater branches of their species, but that they are fiercely jealous of these traditions being passed to lesser insects, and insist above all on an oath of secrecy. Tragically, therefore, he is unable to describe the more substantial and powerful traditions. The wonderful shape, blessings, and invocations of the triple knot recorded at a sanctuary in Cyprus, notable for its weavers, sculptors, and gardeners. The roots go deep, the knots remain. The final invocation is one for the restoration of the roots, to be spoken before an altar of the triple knot, but puzzlingly, it should not be spoken by any priestess of the knot, or even by one who has been initiated into their mysteries. The Morphe Codex, a priestess of the Sisterhood of the Knot, claims to have discerned the true meaning of the Thunderskin's birth. The writer credits the Red Grail, the Ring Yew, and the Horned Axe, the powers the Sisterhood reveres, with agreeing a final treaty between the Hours of the House and the Hours they displaced. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him, as restitution for the slaying of the Horned Axe's sisters and brothers. The Thunderskin entered the Mansis through the Peacock Door, a privilege never given to the Witch and Sister, but then their merit was much less. The writer admits that entry through the Peacock Door is unseemly, but insists that under the circumstances there was no other way. And finally, the Dream of the Conspiracy of the Lower Skies, the disgraced oracle Daemon Azenaton sifts through the tall tales of Penelope of Gordian, the work of the court poet Cal, and the forbidden fragments of the work of the adept Aratres, identifying common themes. Daemon insists that the Hours, far more than mortals, are subject to their passions, to hatred, and even to love. The seasons of famine and plenty, the turn of the earth, the transformations of the furnace, all these are only the results of the enactment of the lesser passions of the Hours. Daemon suggests that the Hours have constrained their rivalry to avoid a war within the House of the Sun. He identifies the fear of the crime of the sky as the reason that Hours do not satisfy other passions. He speculates on the horrifying possibility of Hours turned Alucite. What then would they devour? Right. We have got moments to go. Conversation ebbs and flows. A lively meal concludes. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. Now, I guess I should have worked out something to do with the curious hunch, but I won't lose too much sleep over that. Oh, and Douglas and Hokebald found common ground in their dislike of the Endeavor Club. These two might say something else on the matter if you invite them both back to another salon. All right, that's good to know, actually. I like this idea of... Douglas being this, this like central node in the network. For those of you who do some of the network stuff, the high betweenness centrality. So I'm definitely going to encourage this and make sure that Douglas comes in whenever Hokebald is part of the conversation. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to have Hokebald in the salon. Okay, so let's just grab what we can. Okay, resurgences and emergences will go here. Door and wall here. A lively salon. We've held a lively salon. Some appetites are easier to satisfy than others. Right, I shouldn't have invested time in getting that satisfaction. Okay, Canavec, pyroglyphics, and bells and braziers. So I think we've got our work cut out for us in terms of making the most of these, but I definitely have some ideas in terms of how the day's work's going to go. So, for starters, let's take door and wall. We'll get that leveled up. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. A reasonable question would be, do I want to put the effort into reading The Sky and the Scar now? So the argument for is that I know, I'll lose the element of the soul overnight, but that's not that big of a deal, seeing as we're sort of dealing with the surplus at this point. The drawback would be that I get yet another memory that maybe I don't need right now. But on the other hand, we get a Newman that we can work with. Given that it's Sickle and Eclipse, that's Moon and Edge, so I can see Rhyme and Remembrance benefiting from it, and Inks of Containment. Those aren't the end of the world in terms of figuring out, so... with only slight reluctance, I think I will... put the metal in, although I am going to be a little weird with how I do it. So what we'll do here is we'll take the Sky and the Scar. Obviously we'll set up all the, the languages and such. So what we need here is 9 edge to work with, and I think that means it ties up the edicts. Nope, Disciplines of the Scar, excellent. So yeah, I didn't really want to commit like a baseline metal, and I don't quite want to be committing the like the pluses either, because I can definitely see myself leveling those up to the plus. Now, before I go any further, let's okay, so we're working on the Sky and the Scar. We're leveling up the skill that we want. I actually think we're good to wrap up, so I do apologize for the extended length, but I'm feeling good about the salon. So what we're going to be doing in the future, again, we've got a few tasks on the list, but I'm feeling pretty good about most of the options here. So one of these is going to be re-inviting some of the guests and making sure that we can get in, we can sort of accelerate our progress on the affair of the Oriflamme heist. We are going to be digesting the lessons that we got over the course of the salon. Although, as you note, I will already be adding more lessons to this pile here. So I do sort of want to make sure that I'm advancing at a reasonable clip. And what I might do at the start of the next episode, given that I've got, doubled up Arab and things like this, I may actually get to the point where I decide, okay, you know what, we're going to go for a metal plus plus, an Arab plus plus, kind of like we have with the Shapt here, Fost plus plus. Basically, I want to make sure that I still have the 6 elements of the soul, but you know, I'm not opposed to pushing things out a little bit further to get even stronger elements of the soul, seeing as we don't need so many elements of the soul in order to do the breakups and rebuilding during Numa. But again, all of that's going to be happening in the oncoming weeks. So thank you very much for watching. As usual, Tuesdays is sort of a day where it's just the YouTube VODs that go online, but I will see you all on Wednesday for the next entry. Until then, take care.